Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I'm going to cover the biggest piece of news going on, at least in my part of the world, and something that a ton of people are asking me on both of my channels. And yeah, some people are going to go, Jason, this is off topic, and I know you stick to mostly political stuff for your other channel, your firearm channel, not so much your fitness, but you know what? It's my channel. When something like this comes up, if I want to talk about it, I'm going to talk about it. And for those of you who don't like it, remember you saw the title when you clicked on it, and I gave you 3 informative videos already yesterday. So let's talk about this Dallas shooting situation. As this did happen in my homeland, the Great Republic of Texas, about 4 hours drive from me. So first of all, rest in peace to the 5 officers who were killed in the attack last night at the Black Lives Matter protest, and hopefully the 7 who are injured but still alive are all okay and they recover from this. And my thoughts go out to those men and women and their families. Now, the thing that I'm really disliking already is that what's happened in recent years, and it seems like this is happening again right now, is there is this false narrative being created by the far left media, the leftist media, this idea almost that every police officer is a white male who is out to get black people and that every black person is against the police. And this is a false narrative that just isn't true. It's just blatant race baiting. And it feels like to me, as someone watching this, it seems like they almost want to create a race war. And that's what's going on with this whole Black Lives Matter thing. That's what's going on with the far left, with the Obama administration, things like that. They want this to happen. And it feels so weird to me that this is happening now, because as someone who's 39 going on 40, especially being from Texas originally, from a small town originally, I've seen things shift in my lifetime so far into the extremes with this whole thing, with the whole race relations things and racism in the United States. And when I grew up as a child, I still saw what I would call real racism. So it's like, that's one of the reasons that people are like, you're culturally insensitive online. No, guys, I come from a different generation to where we had real racism, and then I saw it fade out, and I feel like it's okay to just say whatever you want. I don't believe in this current PC nonsense and bullshit, because I saw pretty much what I felt was the death of racism in the United States within my lifetime. I saw real racism as a child, and then by the time I became a young man, I saw it dying out, that racism just didn't seem like it was going to be a problem anymore in the US, that we were just gradually shifting away from it to the point to where there wasn't any real racism. So minor jokes, minor tiffs, things like that aren't really racism. They're not anything for anyone to get concerned about. And basically my opinion is that anyone who does get bothered by little minor stereotype jokes and comments or whatever that people are calling cultural insensitive is a big floppy pussy who really just isn't strong enough to make it in this world. I just have no use for people like that. So because I've seen real racism, it felt like when I was a young man that this was a dead topic, that racism was pretty much going to be over and it was going to be resolved just as a natural progression of things, that it was fine. We were at a point in my lifetime to where we could celebrate our differences and at the same time admit that, hey, we were all Americans in this country, and at the end of the day we were one people. And yeah, we had differences and we could joke about those differences, we could talk about those differences, but at the end of the day, that was still your neighbor that you were talking about. This is still part of your people, your country, and it wasn't really a problem. And when 9/11 happened, I definitely saw that. It seemed like the whole country rallied and we all just were willing to set aside our differences, and they were nothing more than minor cosmetic things that we could joke about, minor cultural things that we could joke about, because at the end of the day, we were all still Americans. But now in the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, particularly under the Obama administration, I've seen a big shift the other direction. There's this whole scream of racism, 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 and everything becomes racism. And it feels like that's almost what they want to have happen. And by they, I know that's the Nietzschean term, the they that he always talked about in his philosophies. I don't know, it almost makes me wonder if this isn't what the Obama administration want. They want a race war to start so they can declare martial law and he can stay in office for another term. I don't know. Maybe that's just some kooky conspiracy theory. But that aside, it feels like people want there to be a race war. And the thing is, I've covered this in detail in the past, even when I was in the UK on my other channel, on the Firearm channel, because I was looking at the breakdown of homicides in the US, who is killing people, and where the numbers are. And yeah, it is not equal among ethnic groups, but that's no reason for racism. There are deeper factors involved there. There are massively deeper factors that are largely due to previous disenfranchisement, formation of subcultures, and everything else that you see in the United States. And so let's look at that for a minute. Let's figure out why we have this problem that we have between the police and the African American community, because it's not genetic. It's not because there's something wrong, inherently wrong with black people, but there are major history and socioeconomic factors involved that have allow people to kind of create a false narrative as if all police officers are against black people and all black people are against the police, because they see things like the massive crime rate in the black community. And let's just put it this way, the police officers are aware of the statistics. They have to live their lives every day based on that. They can't be politically correct. They know what the statistics are. They know what the crime rate's like, the murder rate is like, and it is astronomically high. The murder rate within the black community in the United States, it is astronomically high compared to every other group per capita. But when you look at the history of disenfranchisement there and the creation of basically a counterculture, it's to be expected. It's not necessarily the fault of the people within that community. It's previous racism and disenfranchisement that has created the roots of that. And let's explore what I mean. Essentially, you had an entire group of people who were enslaved. They were brought over here as slaves. Their previous culture, their previous identity was absolutely stripped from them. They lost all ties to it, all roots to it. They had to form a new culture, but the new culture they formed was while they were shackled and enslaved. And a big part of that culture involved the breakdown of the family, because they separated families for generation after generation. Husbands and wives could just be separated and sold. Their children were sold out from underneath them. It basically destroyed the concept of a family, and it destroyed the concept of traditional male role models within that community. So as a result of that, you saw for generations, even after slavery was abolished, of people within that community still dealing with outward racism, affecting them with a culture intrinsic that still had the slave mentality, and with young men who had no concept of positive male role models. And you still see that largely within certain segments, not all. You see a big reversal here happen, but big segments of the African American community, you still have that, to where as part of that counterculture, you still have a large percentage of young men who have no clue what family values are, what positive male role models are supposed to be, what it is to be a man. And I'm not saying that's universal, because you're seeing quite a strong push in the other direction now. But you combine that with a previous history of disenfranchisement, the whole formation of high crime communities, then you throw into the mix the crack cocaine that was pushed back in a couple generations ago, pushed back into that community, and the effects were just devastating. And I'm not going to go into where that crack cocaine came from. That's a whole other topic that I will probably never discuss on the internet. So these factors created a high crime rate. The police know this, and then therefore, because the police have to deal with this every day, you do see some tendencies in certain police departments or in certain members of the police forces to hold to that stereotype, because they see it, they have to deal with it every day. So then some of them do act overly defensive, they act over the top, and then you combine that with the fact of something I've pointed out on my firearms channel. The average police officer is a terrible shot. They have terrible training, terrible familiarity with their weapons. I mean, there are exceptions. I know police officers who are very much firearm advocates and very experienced with their weapons, but I've met just as many police officers who I personally wouldn't trust to handle a firearm. They're not competent with their weaponry. They're not proficient. And that creates a trigger-happy mentality, because you aren't comfortable with your weapon. You're not comfortable with the use of it. You tend to reach for it more often than you might need to. And so that's a bad combination that you see. And that does occasionally account for some of the situations that you see, not all of them. But you do see a problem to where now you have some police officers who do hold on to this stereotype because they see the statistics. The statistics are created by previous disenfranchisement. And then you see many members of the African American community who then have a distrust of police officers because the police treat them differently as a result of the statistics. And it goes back and forth in an endless cycle. And I think the only way that cycle is ever going to end is going to require work in both directions. Just my opinion on it. I think until basically the African American community stops seeing itself as separate and it throws away its previous culture, and it makes efforts to rebuild the idea of a strong family, family values, things like that, to rebuild that community to lower the actual crime rate, combined with those of us outside of that community to stop seeing it as a separate community, to stop seeing people as African Americans or Black Americans and realize that they are just Americans. So until we see a true integration of that counterculture back into the mainstream, which we made great progress towards in my lifetime, but I feel like it slipped back the other direction. But until we see that happen, you're not going to see the actual crime rate itself go down. You're not going to see the stereotype then be looked at differently by the police. And so until all sides of this are willing to work together and have a little bit of unity, we're not going to see this problem go away. We're going to see a vicious cycle continue until it gets out of control and we see events like we had happen yesterday. And I am not supporting Black Lives Matter with any of that, by the way. I do consider them to be a terrorist organization. But what I'm saying is that until we go back in the direction of some unity in this country, like we did see have happening, 10 to 12 years ago after 9/11, we had major unity in this country. Now it seems like all the strides that we made towards that are being undone. And until we go back the other direction, this is going to continue to be a problem, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.